Welcome to session 9, where Sarah will be discussing with us about longing for what we cannot yet receive. Sarah, the Moses is given a view of the promised land from Mount Pisgah.
Yeah.
He lives 120 years, dies,
Yeah.
never actually enters the promised land, only
Right.
knows of it and can see it,
Right.
but he doesn't actually get to step foot on the land.
Right.
You're going to have to help me out. What does this mean for hope?
Right.
This sounds pretty sad. But.
Yeah. Well, I find it pretty relatable, I think.
Okay.
I think hope is this gap between what we think life should be and what life really is. And I think it's a longing for something beyond kind of the earthly sickness and sadness that we often find ourselves in. I keep thinking about this wedding I'm doing next week for one of my good friends in Texas, Christine. And Christine she's my age. She's got 2 middle school girls, and she's had cancer 4 times in 4 years, and she's gotten divorced. I mean, it's just been this, massive hardship. And in between all these chemo treatments, she's actually marrying an old friend of hers, which is such a beautiful thing to get to see and be a part of that wedding. But I marvel at her hope, and I keep thinking about her as I'm reading about Moses, and I think we probably all have people in our lives like this who we kind of marvel at how they can stand in hope even when everything around them feels difficult, even when it looks like our lives are not going to go the way that we thought that they would. I think about how she won't reach that sort of life that she probably envisioned for herself, and how she still has hope in the midst of it, and hope in what is here now, hope in the promises that God has made to care for her and to care for her children. And I mean, I think that's the Christian life. I think that's it's the phrase I think about a lot. God comes disguised as your life. And so what is the hope in the midst of that?
So would you say then that we are all living with something that is not yet? That there are going to be pivots to how we view the hope, let's
right,
say.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I think everything in life can feel incredibly unexpected, and I think we're all sort of waiting on some healing, or people are waiting on a new job, or people are waiting on reconciliation with loved ones. And the Old Testament is full of people who are waiting. I mean, that really is what the Old Testament is. Everyone is waiting. Especially when we think about figures like Joshua, Abraham, Isaac, and Moses. We really are these like Israelites of old. We have so much in common with them when it comes to this language of hope. And we live in hope now for when Christ will return. I think what we have that they didn't is we are able to look back and see what Christ has accomplished for us. Okay. And I think we can find a lot of hope there. I'm talking with my kids right now. For those of you who have kids that are middle school into high school, you're starting to have faith conversations with them that are heavy, where they're sort of trying to sort out, why bad things happen to good people and why they're suffering in the world. And we talk a lot about looking back in our lives and when has God provided for us? When has the church sent people to take care of us and to love us? And, can we find a kind of future thinking hopefulness in those answers?
Okay. I can totally relate to children that have these difficult questions.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that doesn't end when they turn 18. Mine are all in their mid and late 20s, and the conversation continues. Well, as we think about this, and as you mentioned, there are all these people that are so hopeful in the Old Testament. They're looking forward to something. And then we consider in Corinthians that Paul is talking about the resurrection of Jesus, and he offers lots of detail about theology, the theological reflections that take place. What do you think this means for us, particularly about hope? What could we talk about at this point?
I do want to say, if you're studying this, that I think this is a great passage to probably read twice, really slowly, because it can feel a little like the same thing is being said over and over again in a new and different way. And there's a lot of richness there in Scripture. So I would encourage that. But I do want to say my favorite part of this passage is at the end, Paul's statement here. He gets to the most important part, which is the last enemy to be destroyed is death. And I find a lot of hopefulness in that, because I think life can feel really long and difficult. This is a thing we talk about here. And I think death can feel scary for most of us. I was a hospital chaplain in my first job out of seminary, and I would go into rooms of believers and non-believers alike. And almost everyone felt very afraid of death. So sometimes I know I can lose focus on what the finality of the cross means. Yes, it is about sin. Yes, I am forgiven, but sin is death and death is sin. And Jesus has come to proclaim victory over that too. Hope is a long game, but it's also right in front of us. And the promises of the resurrection are here for us now, and they're also waiting for us at the end. And that's where I take my comfort. So I hope that's comforting to you all too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, and for exploring Deuteronomy and Corinthians and making that connection there and tying those things together for us as we have a hope for the things that we long for the promises of God that maybe aren't exactly as we had planned. So we do hope that you will enjoy this study together, and we will see you again next week.